Hello, welcome to my guide on soloing the Aurum Vale as Blue Mage as of patch 7.18. This is the loadout we will be bringing with us into the Aurum Vale. We will be utilizing Tank Mimicry instead of Healing Mimicry due to its higher defense and general synergy with our build. This guide is strict, so any changes to the spellbook will necessitate changes in execution. You will also need some high quality max potions and food from at least Heavensward. Vitality is the only thing we really care about. So first off, there are a few buffs you will want to give yourself before entering the dungeon. These buffs include Aetheric Mimicry, Tank, Mighty Guard, and Toad Oil. Make sure to use Toad Oil right before commencing to make super duper sure you have it. There is one more buff to add after we enter, Basic Instinct. This makes us sprint everywhere, as well as makes us do double damage. Now we've got everything applied and are ready to take on the Aurum Vale. As we enter the first room, be sure to hug the left wall. This is the same as doing Aurum Vale with a normal group. The frogs are, unfortunately, random, and can turn things sour quick, especially if they decide to take you for a ride, but this is usually recoverable. Once at the end of the room, quickly hide behind the left-hand wall of the boss arena, heal up, and freeze every single enemy with the Ram's Voice. Make sure to follow this up with Ultravibration. I heavily suggest using Swift Cast on Ram's Voice to prevent the enemies from sneaking in some extra hits on you. Now we are at our first boss, Locksmith. The first two bosses in here are not immune to death spells, so we just hit it with Tail Screw until it dies. Doom works here as well, but will usually be slightly slower on average. If you find yourself needing healing, use a Devour and or Max Potion. Make sure to just use White Wind as necessary as well. To deal with the first Morbol room, J-Kick to the Goldvine, hit it with a Ram's Voice, and Phantom Flurry. Make sure to point the Phantom Flurry back into the room to kill any approaching seedlings. If the Goldvine doesn't die from Phantom Flurry, follow up with a Feather Rain, which should kill it pretty much every time. The next room has two notable groups of enemies. The first group consists of two wasps that go back and forth across the room. Depending on your luck, you may or may not be able to dodge them completely. If you pull them, they will be dealt with during the second boss. The second group consists of three mites that will always be very specifically placed and rotated. The second group can, with a little practice, be perfectly dodged every run by following a very specific path. You will want to enter this puddle for a brief moment, and from there thread the needle between the left and center mite. The puddle will always be less of a pain and more consistent than pulling this group. Coincounter itself works mostly the same as the first boss, just hit tail screw until you win. What makes this boss slightly different is that you will almost always have enemies following you. These enemies are actually more dangerous than the boss itself. Once the enemies following you enter the arena, use the Ram's Voice on them and follow it up with a Breath of Magic. If there are also Veil Wasps, you may need to hit them with a Shock Strike and Feather Rain. All of this will ensure that these enemies will be dead if Coincounter is taking a while. And if you need healing, as mentioned before, feel free to use a Devour and or a potion. Continue to use White Wind as necessary. Ideally, you can skip this room by J-kicking the Poisoned Peasant, but don't rely on this working consistently. Sometimes it won't be where you want it to be, so just hug the left wall and hope to dodge the mites. You may pull them, which is fine, they will just be dealt with later. Just for the sake of showing how this is dealt with, I've intentionally pulled the mites here. Now for the second Morbol room. This room isn't really too bad for us. Using both ends clears out the room and pulls both of the Goldvines. Pull them into this specific corner as it will group up those mites we pulled earlier. Keep yourself alive with White Wind and make sure to freeze enemies with Ram's Voice. Once everything is frozen, use Ultra Vibe to finish the pull. As an additional note here, sometimes the mites may attack you with line AoEs through the walls. Just be aware that those lines cannot hit you. You are safe in that spot, and you do not need to worry about dodging them. Finally, the last group of enemies. Start by hitting them with Ram's Voice. Once you've applied Ram's Voice, hit Bristle and Breath of Magic to apply a nasty dot to them. I suggest hitting them with Feather Rain and Shock Strike to have them die quicker. Miser's Mistress is the one and only boss in this dungeon immune to death spells, so we're actually going to have to do things here. We start the fight off with our first Moon Flute, with the following rotations shown on screen to help reduce the kill time. After all, killing quickly is a form of mitigation. Here's that playing out in real time. Once your Moon Flute is done, top yourself off with a max potion. You can use potions well in Waning Nocturne. Once you're out of Waning Nocturne, the Mistress likely just finished casting Sow and Bad Breath and will be about to use a Tank Buster on you. It is critically important you heal yourself up before it hits. White Wind is a really good option for this. At this point, you are ready to finish the fight. Start another Moon Flute and hit Goblin Punch and any other damage button you got, including Surpanakha, even if it's not at full stacks. Once the Mistress is at 23%, hit Tingle, Bristle, and Final Sting to finish her. And with that, you have completed a solo run of the Aurum Vale on Blue Mage. Now let's take a look at what a pretty solid run looks like in real time. Thank you for watching.